The Ghouls of Calle Goya. Written by Owen Jones. Narrated by David Wealleans. Published by TekTime. 1. Lake Mjøsa, Norway. The old Baron was seated at the large, highly polished teak and leather desk in his study, looking out over the lake before him. He was short for a Norwegian, about 5 feet 8 inches, had distinguished curly grey hair, a rather round face with brown bespectacled eyes, and was dressed casually in a dark green cashmere cardigan, open-necked shirt, and grey flannel trousers, since he was not expecting any visitors until possibly after lunch. The perfect silence was only occasionally broken by the sound of ice cracking on the lake outside, or birds foraging for small fish in the shallows. The old castle had stood secluded in its large grounds for 5 centuries, and the current Baron had spent all of his time there after finishing his education. Quietness was ingrained in him. When the long-awaited tap on the door eventually came, he answered it in a surprisingly loud voice. "Enter. Ah, Maximilian, I hope that you have good news for me." There was more than a hint of impatience in his voice. "Yes, Herr Baron, I am certain that I have. The telephone line and the satellite dish have been restored to fully functioning order after the storm last night, and the post has been delivered." Maximilian proffered the silver tray he was carrying to the Baron, who picked up the dozen or so envelopes on it. "So, that means the telephone, broadband, and satellite communications have been completely restored?" "My tests suggest that it is indeed so, Herr Baron." "Very good. Thank you, Maximilian. You may proceed with the preparations. Is everything progressing as planned in that matter?" "Yes, sir. There are no problems." The Baron fanned the letters, and the butler left in complete silence, although, before he pulled the door to behind him, he did allow himself one glance at his employer's face. He thought it an extremely courageous and cheeky thing to do, but he liked to be aware of the Baron's mood at all times. Maximilian had been the Baron's manservant at university in Heidelberg, when they had both been young men. He was German, and was the only person allowed to call him Herr Baron. He was completely trusted by the whole household. They had been together for more than 50 years, and they knew each other better than they did their own wives. The Baron was looking for the heavy, dark green envelopes that signified that they came from the closest members of his family and the community within which he worked. These he opened with an obvious sense of trepidation, putting the others aside until later. He was smiling as he withdrew the RSVP cards one after the other. There were 8 of them. He held them up before him and spoke to an old family portrait. "The clan is gathering, Grandfather Peter. We will be one again and continue the ancient family tradition." The walls of the panelled study were lined with family portraits, but there were 2 in particular that the Baron wanted to view at that moment. However, they were not on display to everyone. Not that many people ever made it into the intimacy of his private study anyway. Only a handful of business managers, solicitors, accountants, and the like had ever been through its door. However, the Baron had another room, a secret room, off his office. It had always been there, since the castle was constructed, but along with millions of dollars of other restoration work, it had been brought into the 21st century with state-of-the-art security, life support, and communication systems. He activated the remote control device in his pocket, and a perfectly hidden panel slid open, silently. The room was large by any standards. In the centre stood a perfect round table with 13 matching chairs. A seemingly unnecessary antique chandelier hung over its centre, but its candles could be lit with piezo lighters and doused with puffs of air from canisters of compressed air that were operated by the same remote control. However, it was only ever used on very special occasions, because the room was already perfectly illuminated by concealed lighting, which could be adjusted to suit the circumstances. As he entered what he referred to as the sanctuary, he pressed another button on the remote, and half of the opposite wall came to life with a scene from outside the castle. It was a special one-way window, which could be made to give a view, or not, by passing an electrical charge through the glass. However, the Baron paid scant attention to the swans foraging on the lake outside. He pushed more buttons, and 2 other panes of glass were activated, revealing his most prized possessions. 1 oil painting and a sketch in controlled environments became visible. The Baron held
Sample complete. Ready to continue?